signals our resolve to keep our sovereignty claims over the disputed DIG. And M shows that we need military forces as our backup. Okay, in a broader sense. So our water cannon warfare has largely been under control. Of course, if Japan does not give an inch in our fishermen's rights, I think Taiwan will continue to do similar things in the future. Of course, many American people advise us not to escalate the conflict with Japan. Of course, we show our respect to U.S. position, but United States should take our position into consideration, because our President Ma's supporting rate has not been so strong. So sometimes we need something to endorse Ma's supporting rate. Otherwise, if he cannot tell his people at home that we have a sufficient resolve to maintain our sovereignty or to struggle for fisher rights in the disputed region, then as a president, he may disappoint our people. So I think my talk will end here, and I welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chen. So I'm sure, why don't you join us again? I'm sure there will be many questions, and I have several, but let me begin with this one for either or both of you. And that is, what are the implications of this likely to be for cross-strait relations between Taiwan and the PRC? On the one hand, it's now much more complicated. It's no longer Taiwan and the PRC or the old triangular relationship, China, US, Taiwan. Now we have a new triangular relationship with Japan, in which there are very, very, acute issues at stake here. I can imagine on the one hand, the new Chinese leadership having the reaction of, oh gee, thanks, you're standing up against Japan's claims here, and reaffirming that this goes back to, in essence, Chinese sovereignty. On the other hand, I can imagine them saying, this is okay, so thanks for saying it's not Japanese territory. On the other hand, I can imagine them saying, this is not your territory, it's our territory, or alternatively, if it's your territory, of course it's your territory because you're part of our territory. So what are the implications here for cross-strait relations? It seems very, very tricky and actually potentially a slippery slope for Taiwan.
Yeah, the impact on the cross-strait relations will be very subtle and very delicate. I will say that China always claimed that Taiwan should cooperate with China, including in the military dimensions. But I always argue that Taiwan cannot take cooperative measures with China, particularly in the military dimension, because doing so will hurt our national interests. We will be suspected by both United States and Japan. And on the other hand, if we take cooperative measures with China in the military dimension, I think China will take for granted that Taiwan is taking sides with China. But as President Ma said, we can do a lot of cooperative measures. We can conduct many cooperative measures beyond the military dimension. For example, we can try to talk about the cooperation of oil exploration and some oceanic part in both South China Sea and East China Sea, and we can also cooperate in exploiting the possibility of natural resources there. This is something we can do. We have done so when Chinese Oil Corporation, National Corporation, cooperated with Taiwan China Oil Corporation to exploit the resources of oil and natural gas in the Southeast Sea. I think we could do more, but we will never take military measures with China. But of course, China may be happy because Japan's nationalization of DIG did help China to claim more sea-based lines, and they could dispatch their vessels to patrol this area on a regular basis. That's caused some concerns on our side, because we do worry about China's regular patrol in this region will hurt our security interest in this region. And of course, and I will say that President Ma has mentioned that so far we have three-way bilateral talks: Taiwan, Japan, Taiwan, China, and China, Japan. But whether we can have a breakthrough, we can make a breakthrough to develop into a three-way talks, maybe excluding the sovereignty issues, still remain to be seen. And anyway, I think this time Japan may be the biggest loser on this issue, because it doesn't guarantee their sovereignty there. It still only has administrative power there, and the Japanese Prime Minister could not make good use of this issue to help his party to win the next election. And third, Japan has lost its economic interest in China. So fewer Chinese people are daring to buy Japanese cars, because once there is a nationalist movement arises, Japanese car will be the first top target for. They will ruin the car, and even the car owner put a poster on their car. This car was bought before the 钓鱼台 conflict. This car are still cracked.
Well, there's some people in Detroit who might not be entirely upset to hear that. Yann-huei, do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, I think that's very important questions, the implication for the development of cross-strait relations. And my personal opinion, it provides or gives rise to challenges and opportunities. From Taiwan's perspective, it's very important to expand the international participation in different international governmental organizations. But if we read the 18-party Congress report, not much mentioning about Taiwan's participation in the international governmental organization. Now, for the East China Sea, South China Sea, in my personal opinion, it will develop some kinds of opportunities for Taiwan to ask for mainland Chinese support or not opposition for Taiwan's participation in the trilateral or multilateral dialogue. For example, the adoption of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, ASEAN member states work together, now have a statement, a position to adopt the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea as soon as possible. But China will say no, we have to see the faithful implementation of the Declaration on the Conduct of the Party in the South China Sea first, so that the timing framework is different. But that creates opportunity for Taiwan to say, well, if one mainland China asks Taiwan to cooperate with Beijing to safeguard or defend the sovereignty in the South China Sea, why don't you help or not to oppose Taiwan's participation in that regional code of conduct in the South China Sea. By the same token, in the East China Sea, now Taiwan proposed that the XB and going to have the bilateral agreements. What if the result of the 17 fisheries talk between Taiwan and Japan comes out an agreement? And what's the level or legal status of that agreement? State to state or semi-organization or maybe non-governmental fisheries association. If that's the case, it's going to have the win-win situation. It solved Japan's concern, remove Japan's concern about a sensitive issue, and it gives Taiwan the chance to participate in that, cooperation. So that's why I'm saying that both challenges and opportunities. My personal opinion is very important for President Ma to expand the XP from East China Sea to South China Sea, because the Taiwan Strait, we have been seeing the improvement of the cross-strait relations, and then that's why the participation of Taiwan in international governmental organizations is increasing. For example, World Health Assembly Organization. Maybe in the future we are going to see Taiwan join the ICAO, International Civilian Aviation Organization. So that's increasing. So with the East China Sea, yes, there are opportunities.
Okay. Other questions? Yes. And then Don Emerson.
I want to follow up on what I was involved in the late 1980s in the East-West Center's program on East Asian regional seas. I did a lot of work on marine pollution. But one of the things that I learned there, and they had people from Taiwan, mainland Korea, and all these things, Japan. One thing I learned that a lot of progress was made quietly by the technical people, the scientists, the engineers, the people who are working on through NGO things like this Cross Straits Foundation, which I followed. And this I learned from a woman in the Taiwan Parliament who's a lawyer. She came and spoke at Stanford a few years ago. And she made very clear, and I was fascinated, that there's a lot going on in there quietly, on technical matters, maritime boundary delimitation, quietly on marine pollution, vessel source pollution, all these technical issues that sort of build trust and which lead eventually to the international. I was fascinated. I didn't know about this Harbin thing, and this proves it that there were.
Is there progress under the radar screen beyond what you've articulated?
But
on technical, very specific.
Yeah.
I will agree with your observation. Indeed, there are more dialogues, meetings, conferences.
That's what I mean.
Held across the Taiwan Strait.
Yeah.
My personal opinion, I have been invited much more often to mainland China for South China Sea meetings, and then I would also like to provide you one piece of information. Japan is paying more attention to both East China Sea and South China Sea issue, and Japanese government is going to have conference in East China Sea and South China Sea. They have become more active. So my point is, academic Check 2 level, scholars, scientists, they have done a lot of cooperative projects. But the difficult thing is high politics different from low politics. High politics sovereignty issue, governmental people say, we as people living in Ivory Tower, we try to offer policy recommendation. Sometimes the government do not accept based upon their thinking about national interests.
Okay, Don,
I will respond.